Bay State. No, we are not talking about a college football game. We are talking about Harrington and Richardson, ancient history. This one's going to be fun, and this one's going to be interesting. Let's check it out. Serp Garage. What on earth? Bay State. Well, Harrington and Richardson, they were around for a long time. And they had, their own department store brand of Bay State. So you got no Harrington Richardson markings here. Nothing on the receiver. Just that address, that Worcester, Massachusetts address. Up on top here, we got 12 gauge choke. I think back then they just let you know whether it was choked or it wasn't. That kind of thing. Wood looks really nice on here, right? Well, dating them and really getting into the history on these, it's tough. I got to admit, I was, I learned a lot about a million other things besides the topic I was actually looking to learn about. And that's what happens when you get into these things. There's a lot of research. You have to do a lot of research on what it isn't, is what I mean. So you're actually doing more research on what it isn't until you're actually narrowing it down as to exactly what it is. So when I first started messing around, I got to be honest, I did not even know what Bay State was. And this thing, I saw it for sale for $75, and I just bought it. The way I look at it, like for $75, I mean, I could use it as a back scratcher if it doesn't work or if it's whatever. It actually turned out to be a beautiful buy. I'm very lucky. I get lucky with these kinds of things, and I'll touch on it a little later. Why there could have been reasons why this thing wasn't even like usable. Let's say, because it's like, it walks that fine line between, is it hardened steel? Does it have a 2 3/4 inch chamber? Those kind of things. And is it something that you can actually take to the trap range and use? Or is it, something that you would just a wall hanger? And I don't like wall hangers. I like to use them. I figured for $75, I'm just taking a shot. I got really lucky. The first round of research showed me that Bay State Arms Company originally made single barrel shotguns marked Bay State Arms Company from 1870 to 1874. Okay, this is nowhere near that old. And it doesn't say Bay State Arms Company on it. It just says Bay State on here. So this is part of the clue as to finding out exactly, this Bay State thing, even though I hadn't seen it before. I think vaguely I remember seeing it on a gun before, a shotgun before, but it might have been one of these very, very old ones, like so antique that it's out of my realm of even wanting to purchase it, So I vaguely remember seeing it, but was very thrown around back then. So first there was this company, Bay State Arms Company, 1870 to 1874. Obviously not an incredibly long life, 4 years for these guys, but they reorganized in 1880. And again, I got some conflicting numbers online, so I just kind of averaged out a lot of these. If there was different guys giving different dates, I just kind of I just averaged some of them out. But so they reorganized in 1880, so that's 6 years later, and they produced single shot guns called and marked Bay State gun. And these were from 1880 to 1909. And then the company was purchased by Hopkins and Allen's Arms Company. They continued production of the this Bay State gun through 1915. So the Bay State gun could either be the original company or after they were bought out by Hopkins and Allen, apparently. And again, neither of those have anything to do. Well, I should say don't have anything to do. They are single shotguns. There definitely is a progression of how these things are made and the designs and stuff like that. But that's not this gun. This guy still has nothing to do with that. Even though they produced them up until 1915, you're going to see these were already being produced, but by Harrington and Richardson, just in a different way. Just to cover all bases, because I know I'm going to forget later, even J. Stevens Arms Company, they produced a Bay State gun. If you see something marked when you go looking and you don't know what the hell that is, Bay State gun, which was the same as these Hopkins Allen's marked ones, apparently the same name, Bay State gun marked on them. But those were single barrel shotguns produced after World War II. And these things will probably have Savage Arms Company markings on it, or you'd be able to identify them as being from Savage. So again, not these. What are these? Harrington and Richardson, they had a shotgun called a 1900. Okay, this thing was, as close as I can tell, I have some patents here by a guy named Davenport. Now, these original patents, they may have been from the original Hopkins and Allen when they took over, or these original Bay State Arms Company guns. That's who this Davenport guy might have been making these patents, making these for. Usually in here, it'll show like who they're working for, like what company they're actually coming out with these patents for. These Davenport patents do not have anything like that. And these were the first guns. They have this locking key. So a lot of them, they had this like replaceable pin. So you see where the fulcrum is, right? This was important to these back then, was that this fulcrum, where they actually, hinged right here, okay? This pin was replaceable because it would be like the wear part, and they would make them where there was like a key that you could pull out, and you could see the pin right here, how it would be replaceable. And the guys that know about these, they know that if the pin comes out from the left side, it was this guy's patent. That if it came out from the right side, it was like the later design. I'm not sure about either of those. See here, it shows this pin again. So these are interesting patents to check out. This is the extractor mechanism. They're interesting patents to look out because I think they were the beginnings, but these are not the patents for this guy necessarily. It's just part of the progression, part of the history. The patents here are Martin By. Martin By has 3 patents here, all filed around 1900, right? Yeah. Right when this H&R, Harrington Richardson, came out with this 1900. These are the patents for the 1900. These are a signer to Harrington and Richardson Arms Company. All 3 of these are. This is the extractor mechanism. This one is the mainspring attachment. This, the ability, there's coil springs in here, okay? And the ability to pull a pin out and change these springs was a patent in itself. So you see how it has a pin here. So there's like a pin through the hole that holds it, and it's just the configuration here is patented on mainspring attachment. Is one of Martin By's patents, and the ejector mechanism. Couldn't hurt to pull these numbers. You want to get into the Harrington and Richardson. 040, 402, and 957 here. All three of these you should take a look at. So there's your guy there, Martin By. Man, that took a lot of research to find that, I'll tell you. So again, the stuff that I found here, I printed this out too. This was really interesting. This showed kind of like a history. There was this guy that had markings on shotguns, and there was like literally hundreds of pages. But when I got to B, it was kind of interesting. So I printed just these couple of pages. Has not that one just yet. It's for Bay State. Here's Bay State Arms Company in Worcester, Massachusetts, 1870 to 1892. Doesn't it seem weird that like they're from 1870 to 1892, but Harrington and Richardson is in the same spot making the same shotgun? The same name. It's just so crazy. How do you do research like that? I mean, you would see this address on the shotgun and be like, wow, this thing's got to be from 1870 to 18. It's got to be one of those, right? No. Bay State, Harrington, and Richardson on single guns. Bay State Gun, Bay State Arms Company, Hopkins and Allen, there's the buyout, and J. Stevens. See, all three of them had this Bay State gun. Gun is the same single barrel based on W.H. Davenport patents, you see. These, but not the Harrington and Richardson one. Those are based on the By patents. And then what do we got here? Bay State Gun, Gordon, Hopkins and Allen Company on single guns. There's some other weird kind of buyout with this Gordon name on there. Who knows what's even going on there? And again, an interesting thing I found online here for patent dates that can be used to identify shotguns. Instead of the patent dates, you could have put the patent numbers too. It would have been really cool. But it just shows the maker for these patent dates. So you might have a patent date on your gun, and you could use it to date it to either the Davenport patents, Hopkins and Allen patents, Harrington and Richardson patents. I think they list here By's patents as just Harrington and Richardson patents on here. So further into the research, we get into a lot of stuff. It's always the chat forums too. A couple of really cool chat forums where I find out that this thing is not the 1900. The 1900, I put down here that I thought I dated it to 1917, but don't go by that. I think that's wrong. Still, again, haven't done a 100% dating on it, but these are the 1900s right here. These were the ones with this removable pin. This does not have the removable pin. So the ones that took over from them were the 1908s. Now, there was some confusion where I couldn't tell if these Bay State ones were 1908s or 1915s, because there's two different models here now. And they basically were the same guns, it says here. See, they both use the snap-on forend. This forend, I guess we'll take it apart later. I'll show you. But this forend, there's no screw. This just snaps on and off, right? So that's how you know it's either the 08 or the 15. So, and the introduction of these, it says, was in the September 1908 issue of Outdoor Life. That'd be pretty cool if you could find that. But now, so you go, how do you know large frame, small frame? Well, here we go. Here's an ad for the 08 when it came out. This is pretty interesting, how its introduction. And in 1916 to 1920, the model 1908 was changed to a flat side frame. This definitely has a flat side. So you're thinking you're in the 1916 to 1920 area. But again, not sure, because I'll show you. When we get into here's the 1908. 5.5 to 6.5 pounds. I weighed this thing. It's a little bit over 6.5 pounds. So this was considered the large frame. It certainly looks like it just by looking at it here, right? Then it lists the variations. But before we get into that, so here's the 1915. and we were at 4 to 4 and 3/4 pounds. This was considered the small frame. And for other reasons, a couple of other reasons, just reading through it, I don't think it was the 1915. I think it's based on this 1908. And then you go through the 1908. Luckily, in here, he prints variations in here. This guy, I'd love to know where he's getting the information. But so, sorry, it was chambered for 12, 16, 20, and 24, 28 gauges. Both discontinued in 1923. I don't know what that means by both, but here's the variations. The first variation, 1909 to 1921, had a 2.5-inch chamber and a short forearm. So now you see, when these guns were like the older shotguns with these 2.5-inch chambers, you're not really supposed to be using 2 3/4-inch ammo with them. They're supposed to be, obviously the chamber, if you measured a shotgun shell, right, it'd be about this long. I cut the top when it unfolds. I cut the top off of this one. So if you would measure it, a lot of people think that would be 2 3/4. It's not. So it's like 2 1/4 inch. To get to 2 3/4 is when it's open all the way. That's when it goes to 2 3/4 inch for the shell to open up. So a fully opened shell like this, if you measure it, is 2 3/4. So these plastic ones, it doesn't really matter as much. Don't do it. If you have a 2.5-inch chamber, you'd have to get it opened up, from what I hear. I don't have one single shotgun that has that, and I try to avoid them. But the older type of shells, I have one here, like older shells. This is a Peters paper. This is new production, but older shotgun shells used to be made out of paper like this. So you see how thick this stuff is? So if this tried to open up and didn't have enough room, you could imagine there's a problem. Look at how thick this is, But these newer type shells are made with this ultra super thin plasticky stuff. I've seen a guy shoot 2 3/4-inch shells out of a 2.5-inch chamber, and you can see over here this plastic gets kind of denuded a little bit. You know what I mean? I've seen that. So there's definitely something to it to not mess around. So how do you know? You go like, well, I'm buying it. How am I sure? It's so simple to just be sure. We've done this before. You take like a wooden dowel, you go inside the chamber and you feel around. You feel around in here. You're going to feel that edge. You're going to feel where the edge of the chamber is, right? So wherever that edge of the chamber is, I'm feeling it as right there. So then you put your finger right by the edge of the barrel, and then you measure. Where are we at? 2 3/4. So that's how we know that this is 2 3/4. If you felt it, and you come out and you're measuring it, and you measure it, and this is where you're coming to, you got a 2.5-inch chamber. So this is how we're using it for two things here. Number one, we're making sure that we're safe to use it. And number two, we're dating it. Because the first variation from 09 to 21 had a 2.5-inch chamber and a short forearm. Second variation, and I don't know the different forearms, you could probably compare them by looking online too. But the second variation, 1922 to 1930, had a 2 3/4-inch chamber. Here we go, and a long, slim forend. I guess this is the long, slim. It certainly doesn't seem long, so it's a little odd. But I would say it would be this one, 22 to 30. So that's actually where I'm sitting firm on that date right there. I would say this one is somewhere between 22 and 30, even though he's writing here, third variation added the 410 bore in 1925. These were produced all the way up until like 41 or 1942. This could be all the way up to 1942, I would suppose. I don't know why this guy put 22 to 30 for the 2 3/4-inch chamber. Why it doesn't go all the way to 41, I don't know. But I do know that they did start marking other things on it, like when it went into this model 1915 and other ones, they started putting other things printed on them. So like, let's see. So here, the 1908, right? 1909 to 1942. First variation, 2.5-inch chambers, very slim and short forearm. 1909 to 1921. Second variation, 2 3/4 inch, slim, long forearm. 1922 to 1930. Then third variation, 1925 to 1942, a 410 bore was added. Here's fourth variation. This is why. This is why I stuck with the 1930. Here it is right here. Fourth variation, the number 8 standard. Standard is marked on the left side of the frame and a wider forearm. And those are from 31 to 42. I don't have standard marked on here. So there you go. That's why I plopped right down over here to the, where is it? Sorry, to this one. 1922 to 1930. That's where I'm at. Second variation. Boom. We got it. We figured it out. Look at all of these. There's so many interesting ones. There's a folding model where it actually, I think these are them, right? It actually folded down the barrel, the whole thing, instead of, it folded all the way till the barrel was up against the stock here. So you could, stick it in a bag, carry it somewhere. How cool is that? Here it is. There it goes. There's a picture of it like that. Wild, right? It's folding. The heavy breech single gun, hammerless single gun, Bay State single barrel shotgun with automatic ejector. Here we are. So, yeah, the ejectors, these could have come with an ejector or not. Light frame, 1943, they started using the name topper. So if you hear these toppers, this basically is, basically the same thing. But in 1943, this is way later, they started making these toppers, 43 to 56. And after 40, you could use this to date them. But I noticed a lot of people were fooled. I have an A prefix here on my serial number. So a lot of people, I think all these old ones had an A. So a lot of people would ask, what's my date of that? And they would show the serial number like on chat forums, and people would look here, see the A and say 1940. But it's not, there's A's all the way through these early ones from the teens into the 20s, into the 30s. They all had an A. So they weren't all from 1940, but a lot of people said they look at this chart. You could use this chart, goes all the way to 1982, starting in 1940. If you're pre-1940, that's not going to work. And yeah, the ejectors. So with these, you could get automatic ejectors or non-automatic ejectors. So take a snap cap here, okay? And we load it. We close it. Then we cock the hammer. Every time you shoot this, you got to cock the hammer. Breaking it doesn't cock anything, doesn't cock the hammer. You got to do it manually, which is kind of cool. I kind of like that you could just carry it like this. And it has a safety here. If it gets dropped or banged, look, it won't contact. You have to have your finger on the trigger. I'm going to pull the trigger with my thumb. Now you see it'll contact the firing pin. If I let go of the trigger, nope. It's got a safety mechanism in there. It's got to be a patent for that somewhere. There'll be like a safety patent. And I'm telling you, if I looked hard enough, I'd find it. But that's pretty cool that it actually has that. And you can carry it around very safe for that reason. Uncocked, shell in the chamber. Even if you drop it, you don't have to worry about getting hit. And it's really hard to pull this hammer back, so you don't have to worry about it happening by accident. But once it's back, we fire. And then when we break it open, do we have the automatic ejector or not? What do you think? Yes, we do. So if you didn't, that shell would still sit there on this. I think this piece is still there. But when you opened it, it would just sit like this. It would just open and just sit there for you to manually take it out. So it breaks it loose. So it's not like you got to sit there with your thumbnail trying to get it out of the bore. It pulls it out just a little bit like that. It would pull it out just that much for you to be able to grab it. But the automatic ejector is what I like. I like that. I love to send them flying behind me at the trap range. That's freaking awesome. So yeah, so when I got this thing, it was dogged. It was covered in surface rust. And It was wrecked. It was wrecked, but it was $75. So that's what it's all about in my book. This restification, this preserving of them is what's important. So I polished the brass bead up front here. I bronze wooled the barrel, the BLO on the stock. Bronze wool here. You don't want to go too nuts. See, the bronze wool is cool. It doesn't take off the patina. If you use like steel wool, you know what I mean? The steel would you literally start to shine this. The bronze wool is so gentle to the metal that it won't ruin the patina, but it will take off that frosty rust, and that was all over the top. It was everywhere. You couldn't even read some of these markings because of that. And you got to know just where to go with that bronze wool too. You don't want to go too far even with that, but at least it makes it feel smooth. It keeps the patina. And I think that like frosty rust that's on it, it is continuing to rust. I'm pretty sure that's like active rust. And when you do this, I think it shuts it down. You know what I mean? And you can see like Mark Novak would like actually boil the metal, like tank it and boil it to stop the rust and change the chemical composition of it by doing it that way. His channel is awesome to watch for stuff like that. I don't have anything big enough to be able to boil it, but I think for my purposes, the steel wool stops it enough. I'm pretty sure. I don't really never really had anything that was so crazy rusty. Yeah, so the takedown. Let's check out the takedown. So yeah, you just want to kind of grab onto this firmly. You don't want to go like halfway off. You just want to kind of get it all the way in one shot. Be careful with it. The wood is thin here. You get a good grip. You get to see where that actually is. You probably want to grab exactly right where this is. I may have been a little bit too far forward right there. They put a number on here that's got nothing to do with the serial number, but that's pretty cool. And like most of these, once that's off, it just comes apart. Very simple. These are serialed, identical serials, which is cool. So you know that it matches. What could be simpler than this? There's a number down in there also, but you have to take off. You have to really start taking it all apart. And I didn't want to go crazy. With these older ones, I like to try to leave them alone as much as possible. I did take the buttstock off, and it's kind of odd the way it maneuvers on and off. There's like a channel. You have to know the right angle. You can start messing things up. This wood is beautiful, so I didn't want to screw with it, but I did want to get in there to oil the springs that you saw there in the patent. Where was it? Right here? Inside the... Sorry. Where are they? I got to find it was the buy patent for that. So yeah, in here, I just wanted to get in here to oil. There's 2 springs in here, and I just wanted to make sure I got in there to clean it and make sure that those were everything was good in there. And by going in there, I saw where you could start to disassemble further, but stopped right there. And look at this wood. This is supposed to be, these Bay State ones are supposed to be a, cheaper construction, cheaper wood. I don't know. It's like pretty beautiful to me. I like it. And what did I want to do when it was apart? I forgot. Didn't I have something else to do? I don't remember. I don't think so. Let's, I don't think I want to pull it off again. So let's just make sure there's no nasty hand stuff down there. Now here, you want to make sure it's 100% straight, like right down the barrel. But the thing to do is to do it upside down. You can watch this joint right here, and you just push. But that connection also dates it. The fact that it has a connection like that also dates it. So I know what you want to know. You want to know how it's shot at the trap range, right? Well, so I did 3 rounds today. What I'm going to do is I'm going to show you, this is the Bay State. And I think I'm going to pull up just every shot I took. It was a tough day today because these guys, man, each of these guys I was shooting with here, they were guys that took a long time. So it's like, it's hard when you're trying to dial in a gun. You want to go kind of rapid fire. So you're like, all right, I'm trying a little high, go a little higher, maybe a little lower, trying to pattern it. You want to wait like a minute and a half between shots. You kind of forgot where you were aiming. You're just trying to find where it's hitting, and it's like you forget where you even were last shot. You really kind of need rapid fire. If there's a time, never be there by yourself or just with one other person where you're going back and forth kind of quick, get that cadence going. But with a long line like that, it was really, really tough. And I couldn't find where this thing was hitting. I mean, there's a couple of times that I thought I thought it was like, oh, it's hitting way high. And then I thought it was going left. So I was aiming a little to the right. The puller was trying to help me. I was like, I don't know where it was going. But I got a few hits here, but literally single digits, 2 games with single digits. And it was frustrating. It was hot there, and having to wait that long in between shots was killing me. So then I shot around with Jamie that was there on the range. A 22 to add to the list of how are we doing with Jane. That shotgun, that 1100 is consistently in the 20s with me, like right there. I'm getting the same each game. And it obviously just needs just that little, that concentration. What's left of that now is the concentration. Just that day, the right day is going to come, for that gun. Shooting a 22 line with the conditions today that was phenomenal. That was really pulling one out. But this thing, man, I could not hit anything. Could not hit anything with it. It was terrible. So that was the story with it at the range. I don't think it's going to be. Listen, it's 30-inch barrel. It's kind of like not a 100% full choke. Here's my choke gauge. So we'll take a look. It's wrong side. It's not quite full. It's eating the full, and it's kind of going halfway into the improved, modified. Say really, unless it could just be that just the very, very end of the barrel is just from being so old, it's just worn a little bit. It could be that too. But I'd go with, it's a full choke. It's close enough to a full choke for it to not really matter where I'm not hitting anything. But it's a full choke 30-inch barrel. I don't know where I was hitting, man. I don't know. I don't know. It was baffling to me, and this happens every once in a while. And I'm thinking, all of the ones where I can't hit anything, they must all be kind of like patterning the same way. And I'm thinking what it is that if they're patterning high, I'm okay with it, because like I see the bird, and if I make adjustments, I tend to make adjustments shooting lower, where I still have the bird visible. But I think where I run into trouble is that when I'm patterning low, I have to be covering the bird. So I don't really have the bird. I have the gun sights, and like the bird would be somewhere underneath the bead. So where is it underneath the bead? Is it on the barrel? Is it where my hands would be? Is it what line of sight am I looking at when it's under? When I have to shoot over the bird, I lose sight of the bird. And I think whenever I have this problem where I'm getting like 8s and 6s and 4s when I shoot around the trap, when I'm normally getting mid-20s, is that I think the issue is that they're patterning high. So I have to would it be high? Oh, they're patterning low. So I have to actually cover the bird to be able to hit it. And I think that's the problem with all of them that are doing that. I wonder what the answer is. Maybe you could just change where you're putting the bead. So what would you have to do then? You'd have to like bury the bead. So then the bead would have to disappear. One way or another, you're losing sight of something. Then the bead would be lower than see, because there's a channel right here. So you see there's a channel right here in the back that the bead that's on the front where the bead would actually sit inside this channel in your view. So now the bead would have to be lower than this channel. So once again, you're losing sight of something now. Now you're losing sight of the front bead. How do you know exactly where that is when now you see the bird, now you can't see the front bead? I think that's what the issue is. I think I was shooting, when I was shooting way on top of them, I was hitting them. But then I started shooting way on top of them and I wasn't hitting anything. I was trying all over the place on top of them. What I thought I was hitting on top of them, I couldn't hit anything. Well, that's that. What else we got here? I think I've covered it all. Harrington and Richardson, baby. These guys are, these guys had their store brand. Bay State, huh? There it is. Bay State. Massachusetts, made in USA. So that's it, ladies and gentlemen. That's the Harrington and Richardson Bay State shotgun visit. I don't know if it'll ever make a trip back to the range, but I'll tell you this. Listen, it was flawless. It ejected every single time. It shot every single time. There was no doubt. These are here. These are some of the husks from it. Look at those firing pin shots. Man, look at that. The brass was puddling into the firing pin hole. It was black. I mean, this thing was not kidding around. And I don't want anybody telling me that it's all loose. Look, locked up. It's got a tight lock. Look at this. There's no movement here. Nothing's moving. Don't tell me that it's rattling around and it's all open. Maybe a teeny bit. Nothing really. Even open. This is tight right here. And when this is a tight lockup. There's no floppy lockup here. These do get like that after a while, but this one, old as it is, listen, nothing. It's solid. So it's just me. I guess it's just me. But me and Jane took care of business. We got another 22 under my belt when I was on my way out the door. I saved face, made me feel good. And that's the Bay State, ladies and gentlemen. We got the next video. We got some stuff coming out, going up with Manny Grossman too. We got to make Manny Grossman's video. I don't know if that's going to be next but the one that's coming up, our example coming up next. It's been a long time coming. You're going to love it. Get ready to sit down with a bowl of popcorn on a set. When should this one drop? I'm going to drop this one Saturday. Next Saturday afternoon. So that's Saturday night. Maybe I'll do a premiere for the first time. You know how you could do like a premiere? Maybe I'll do that. Maybe I'll release it as a premiere. I never wanted to do that because I feel embarrassed if they were like 4 people watching. But you know what? I'm going to do it. I'll drop it as a premiere. It's going to be a hot one, man. I'm telling you, you're going to love it. And yeah, until then, y'all take care and see you soon.